Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
I have with me today Mr. Salman Bashir. He is former Foreign Secretary of Pakistan and he was also Pakistan's High Commissioner to India. Welcome to ThePrint, sir.
Thank you.
So to start off, I would obviously ask you the first question on the easing of tensions that we are discussing at this point of time. We see some initial thawing is happening between the two. However, we just saw the decision taken by Pakistan to import sugar and cotton from India, which ultimately got stalled. So just to understand from you, what is it that is going on? Do you see a normalization happening? The DGMO statement, the statements from both the sides, especially from Pakistan Army Chief, of bearing the past moving forward. So all that, if I can ask you, just to start with, sir, do you see real easing of tensions happening? Has that moment sort of arrived in India-Pakistan relations once again?
Well, yes, I think the first point is that it is now quite well known that there have been communications between the two countries for a while. We are still not very clear at what level and how that's been done, but it is normal, I think, for two states which are neighbors, close neighbors, contiguous, to have communications going all the time. So the first product of these communications, as you rightly pointed out, has been this LOC ceasefire observance agreement. I think that is a very positive, much required, essential, basic step that has been taken. There are sort of positive vibes, at least one senses them in Islamabad. The desire to sort of work towards easing of tensions between the two countries. And of course, as is always the case, Pakistan and India, small steps, baby steps have to be taken. So this, what you mentioned about the trade normalization, it's not only trade, there's a lot of things I think that can be done once there is the political will on both sides to make it happen. So the essential point in my view is the political will. Whether that political will exists equally with adequate fervor on both sides is the big question. Of course, it is, absolutely normal and I think natural to imagine that these two countries need to turn a page in their relationship. The past 70 years, in my view, have been bitter, but they have been, there was a lot of substance that was negotiated and reached between the two countries in terms of agreements, understandings, etc. So if there is the political will, then all of those things that were already agreed upon could be taken up. And as you rightly mentioned, the trade normalization was one of those subjects, which is of consequence, and I think it should happen at some point in time.
Mm-hmm. So first coming to trade normalization, because that's one area that had got a considerable push when you were here in New Delhi as the High Commissioner of Pakistan. I remember how that time the discussion was also to the extent that there will be a positive and a negative list. More items were to be added, to be traded through the Wagah border. But then things did not really take place after there was change of government in Pakistan. But do you think that even now there's this hesitancy, probably that, and we've heard that from Pakistan side itself, that unless Kashmir is solved, trade normalization will not take place. So it seems that from both the sides, trade is now entangled again with the political issues.
Well, you see, that's what I meant. I mean, if there is the political will, then a lot of these things can be disentangled. Of course, Kashmir is central to all that has hurt the relationship between the two countries, so it cannot be set aside. But even on Kashmir, there are things that are doable and that should be done. And to begin with, I think my favorite word for that is creating comfort for the Kashmiris. If we are able to work together to create comfort for the Kashmiris, then we at least get to a starting point where we can think of more bold and creative steps to ease the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I think the basic starting point is the will to start improving relations, to deal with the realities, on both sides, and in particular the realities, that exist as far as the Kashmiris are concerned. And of course, as I said, there are a lot of things that can be made to happen, once we are able to get to that point. So, of course, both countries are sort of democracies, and of course, there is a lot of public opinion, and public opinion has to be carried along by the leadership. I think it's true for both sides, and the media, especially, I think, in both countries, have an important role to play.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about political will, two things. When you talk about firstly the political will and also comfort for Kashmiris. Now, do you think that sort of political will is being built up now when we are hearing that back channel talks are going on? I have also interviewed former Raw Chief A.S. Dulat when Mr. Dulat said that, he believes that NSA Ajit Doval and Colonel Bajwa, they are talking, General Bajwa, I'm sorry. So do you think those back channel talks are going on and they might finally lead to having these two leaders, Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Imran Khan, speaking to each other on some of the outstanding issues?
I think, yes, if that is the case, that is would be a good thing to happen. It should lead to a summit level meeting, whether it is in the SAARC format or it is bilateral, that could take place. But of course, the finer details need to be worked out. And the first thing, of course, as far as Pakistan is concerned, is addressing, effectively the situation of the Kashmiris. And we have said, and I think the government here in Islamabad is very, very clear on that the steps that were taken in August 2019 have to be reversed, which essentially means reviving the statehood of Jammu and Kashmir and discarding these efforts to change the demography in Kashmir. So I think those are the two basic steps that on which some sort of an understanding has to be reached, but more, I think, substantively, the situation in terms of human rights of the Kashmiri people has to improve substantially. Efforts have to be made in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's good for both. It's good for the Kashmiris, it's good for India, it's good for Pakistan. Mm-hmm. So once that happens, or at least an understanding to that effect is reached, then a lot of other things can be contemplated leading up to a summit level interaction between the two countries.
Okay. Also, if I can ask you, sir, the fact that it seems, and it is quite clear now, at least from India's side, that the chapter on Kashmir is over. Article 370 is done with, and that's gone forever. Now, in a situation like that, what I fail to understand, how is it that Pakistan is thinking that kind of a decision can be rolled back? Or is it just that, once you give the statehood, maybe things will settle? Will that be a comforting factor, or, the way forward for Pakistan?
You see, I think there is this thing about the Article 3. So I don't think Pakistan ever sort of recognized the article that we're talking about. It was irrelevant to the Pakistani position. Our position has been very clear, and that position is the rights of the people. And so that's what it is all about. it's about the right of the Kashmiri people, and especially their human rights, which includes the right to self-determination. So Article 370 does not has not figured previously. But what has upset, of course, is the sort of steps that accompanied the revocation of that article, which created a highly explosive and a very difficult situation for the Kashmiris, who were put in great difficulty. And those steps need to be reversed. And of course, these concerns about the political activity, about restoration of normalcy in Kashmir, and about these apprehensions about changing of demography, these have to be laid to rest. So I think these are things that ought to be addressed, I think, in an effective way. And if that is possible, so to answer your question, Article 370 is something which to my mind, is not relevant here.
Okay, so you think that unless that is solved, there will be no sort of trade normalization or anything that's happening from Pakistan's side? Why I'm asking, because it is Pakistan that sort of suspended first the trading ties, post which India took away MFN. India also awaited, for MFN status for a long time. But now the decision that was taken that probably they'll import, now they stopped it. So what is it that India is going to sort of, how would Indians look at it, that unless Kashmir is solved, there is no way that any discussion is taking place, right?
No, what I'm saying is there is no way to solve Kashmir, in one go. There have to be steps towards a solution, and these steps have to be durable, sustainable, and both sides have to agree to a process that leads to creating, as I said, comfort for the Kashmiris. So if the Kashmiris are on board and they get some respite, then that will open space. But on the trade side, as you know, of course, Pakistan had agreed back in late 2013, early 2014, to give non-discriminatory, both sides had agreed to non-discriminatory market access. And the fact is that while we were prepared to sign on and to give, the MFN in that way, it was just before the first, elections in which the BJP came to power. This was February 2014. When I left Delhi, there were signals that Pakistan should hold back till the new government is in place. So that's why it did not happen. The agreement could not be signed. But Pakistan has always favored trade normalization with India. And I think the more important point that I would like to mention here is, and I think which needs to be factored in the thinking among our Indian friends, especially in Delhi policy circles, is that we have, after a lot of deliberation, opted to give priority to development. So what is being called the move to an economic security paradigm is something that is in Pakistan's national interest. And we are pretty well determined to pursue that. And of course, it will be good if and to pursue it, of course, we need a stable regional environment. And therefore, from the Pakistani perspective, improvement of relations between Pakistan and India is very important if we have to pursue this, as is the improvement of the situation in Afghanistan. So a lot of positive processes are now unfolding, whether it is under the SCO framework or regional economic perspectives, which talk about or which involve inter-regional cooperation. And of course, India is in South Asia in terms of its market size, its economy, etc. So a lot of good can come, by linking all these regional processes together. We had the Foreign Minister Lavrov in Islamabad 2 days ago, and it we are seeing a lot of positive encouragement from friends in this region, which include Russia, China, Iran, and others, and especially also the Gulf countries that are interested in stability and put a special premium on economic development rather than just politics. And I think it is probably good for both Pakistan and India to start depoliticizing the situation and really focus on what is really required, in terms of the aspirations of the people, that is development. We have a lot of ground to cover in that respect, both countries and the region as a whole.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that you talk about the Gulf countries, and there's a lot of, there were reports coming up that in the sense that the UAE is probably playing a role of a mediator, and if not a mediator, at least they want these two countries to talk. Although India and Pakistan both have always stayed away from any kind of third-party intervention, but do you think UAE is doing it? And if so, what is their interest in all of these, according to you?
Well, I don't know for sure, but if they are doing it, I think it is good. We need friends on both sides to be helpful to both. UAE is a brotherly country. Pakistan, there are a lot of links between Pakistan and the UAE, and the same is the case between UAE and India. And UAE, especially the Crown Prince, has positioned himself in a way that he wants to play a proactive role. I think that is happening. I'm not sure, I'm not aware of the facts, but if that is the case, that's good. We are not talking mediation here, we are talking facilitation. But I know I've heard that there are these direct back channels or discrete channels operating between the two countries. And I think that is also very positive. So the important thing from my own experience is to keep all of this away from the media, because that's where it gets wrong, because of the sentiments and, the emotive nature of what is sort of sparked by these one-liners. But if serious business is transacted on the part, and we see results, as we have seen in the case of the LOC ceasefire agreement, that is solid, that is productive, and that was essential. So a basic step has been taken. There is a long road ahead, a lot of opportunities. Sky would be the limit of our cooperation, but we need to synchronize our thinking. And I think that's what I meant by political will. And I think it is in our interest of the region, of the two countries and our peoples, to put people first and bring the Kashmiris into the fold. I mean, they also deserve a noble, productive life, a happy life. So why get into this, politics and power politics and all these notions of a bygone age that have kept us in this whirlpool of misery for so long. So there has to be forward-looking thinking, and I think I've always said that if both political leaders, the leadership on both sides were to agree, we could do a vision statement, and it would not take us a long time for Pakistani and Indian diplomats to do a one-pager of how they see the region and themselves, say, in the next decade or so. But there has to be a vision for the future, and without that, we are just sort of, redigging the past, and that is not good enough.
Mm-hmm. So my last question to you would be, when you say that there's a long road ahead, although the DGMO statement was solid and it's working as of now, how important it is that both sides now reinstate high commissioners, which has been, not been there since 2019 when Pakistan downgraded diplomatic ties. How important and crucial that is?
I think that would be a good step. I think it's easily doable.
Is Pakistan planning something like that anytime
Well,
soon?
I am no longer in the government, so I can't speak for the government. But to me, from my own experience and from my own personal inclination, this is an easy step to take. But much more fundamental would be, this. We need to have a solid basis to go forward, because from our experience we have seen that you take a step and then you're obliged to go back 2 steps. So if there is a good understanding between the leadership, which is arrived by discrete channels, then you are much more sure-footed. But of course you will have to prepare the public opinion to support you and to carry everybody along, because in parliamentary systems and in democracies, this is what happens. So we would like the leaders to play their due role of steering the relationship positively, and also play their role domestically to creating the public opinion to support what they want to achieve. So what we are really in need of is a lot of statesmanship, I believe.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for talking to ThePrint, and thank you for giving us your time. That was Ambassador Salman Bashir. He was Pakistan's High Commissioner to India. Thank you, and you take care.
Thank you. Thank you, then.